I'm going to assume you are one of the 7 people who are going to watch this. Kaguya is a monarch reliant unit with support capabilities and decent DPS. She is very versatile and useful. As always, enable the subtitles if needed and let's go. Her passives are pretty straightforward. Because she teleports every time she attacks, she is a bit tricky to position and use properly. But this also makes her a great unit that chases enemies around the entire map. Her second passive makes her synergies very well with units that has gauges like bacon. When you have an unbound unit in your team such as Broly, she will also now have an unbound element. This means you can have any element on your Kaguya, including unknown. Moving on to her active skill, she will have 3 domains on placement: fire, ice, and sand. Each domain corresponds to each element: fire, water, and blast. These are Kaguya's 3 main elements.
Your elemental power is green.
What's that?
Green.
Okay, so just to recap. Fire, water, earth, and...
green.
During the fire domain, she boosts fire element allies by 30% damage. And she also applies a map-wide 35% burn on all enemies for 8 seconds. If previous domain was ice, she applies map-wide 50% slow for 4 seconds. And if the previous domain was sand, she makes stun lasts twice as long for the next domain. This domain is really useful for catching leaks. Ice domain freezes the enemies for 2 seconds and boosts water element allies by 30% damage, nothing too special. If the previous domain was fire, it applies frostburn. Frostburn applies dot and freeze. If the previous domain was sand, it makes the next domain give 50% damage boost. Lastly, sand applies repulse to all enemies. This repulse works on bosses too. Along with 30% damage boost to all blast allies. If the previous domain was ice, she boosts all allies damage by 30% during the current domain. And if the previous domain was fire, she deals 50% of her damage to all enemies on the map. Nextly, she gains a nuke on upgrade 4. This is one of the best nukes in the game, dealing 1000% of the unit's displayed damage. This ability is meant to be used along with the domain. This is the setup you'd want to have before you use your nuke. It should be giving Kaguya 2.1 times more damage on base. Each domain lasts 20 seconds and has a 10-second cooldown in between. Now on to domain passives again. Kaguya will gain 20% damage boost and 10% range boost upon activating her first domain. This stays until you repeat the same domain cycle. Nextly, if Kaguya already has the corresponding element to her domain, she will gain 50% damage boost. If you have water and blast unit in your team, it should look something like this. Lastly, when you activate a domain, Kaguya teleport to the first enemy regardless of their location. Her synergies are very straightforward. You mainly want the units from her 3 main elements. Another one is DMCA. Because Kaguya costs a lot to place, DMCA becomes a great early defense for her whilst also providing her with damage boost. Not to mention he provides one of the best elements. Nextly we have John Smith. Not only does he provides blast, he also provides immunity with unknown element. And as mentioned earlier, she can also be used as support with units with gauges, but because she teleports, it is tricky to pull off. Here is an example of a Kaguya team. The purpose of this team is to get as much nuke damage as possible. The downside of this team is that Smith takes more than 15 waves. You can slot out Smith for Quetzalcoatl and Tenjin for John Smith here if needed. This team will be your go-to for game modes with 15 waves. It is commonly mistaken, but Tenjin only provides blast for Kaguya, meaning you need a fire unit along with her. As you can see, her damage is on the lower side. Without her own team and Monarch, she is to be used as a support. She loses a big chunk of her damage without proper element. This is why it is so important to have her 3 main element. And it is also why she's either a support or a hyper carry. Now let us bring in the Quetzalcoatl team. Even with a full team, her DPS is still low, but her nuke is very strong even with trailers. But do keep in mind that she still deals 30% more damage to bosses because of the curse element from the MCA. These are her stats with Monarch solo. Nothing too impressive. Because Kaguya's passive relies on other units, she isn't that impressive as a solo unit. And finally her Monarch damage with Quetzalcoatl team. As you can tell, her damage is being outdated quite fast. Her nuke allows her to clear most game modes with ease at the moment. In the current meta, she is being used for portals for elemental advantage, and in Worldline as an unknown unit. She is mainly being used as a early or cheap nuke. Now for pros and cons. She is overall a very beneficial unit that fits into many teams. She is many people's current go-to Monarch unit in the game. Her cons are as follows in my opinion. You can't use her with other domain units like Broly and Gojo. Can't really use units like Hirukarin with her and so on. Overall, she is a very strong unit with map-wide nuke and supports, very convenient and easy to use. She is one of the best units for clearing easy stages in the game at the moment. Not to mention, she is one of the must-have units if you're doing world lines and so on. Before I forget again, her best trait is Monarch and her best familiar is Burb. I hope you enjoyed the video. This video took roughly about 20 hours with me constantly getting distracted. I won't be able to use this type of editing style since they take 2 to 3 days, so I decided to do it for Kaguya. And if you're wondering why, Chef said why not. That will be all from me, and see you next time.
For